Are you ready? Emergency communications? Are you enabled to help yourself? Well, next on Live Free and Ham, we're going to be talking about some of the hurricane and a little bit about MCOM. So, hello and welcome to the Live Free and Ham podcast. This is our bi-weekly show during which we discuss ham radio topics in New Hampshire, New England, and beyond. Well, so whether you're a regular listener or first-time guest, we are excited to have you here and appreciate your support. And thanks for tuning in tonight's episode. So let's get into the show. I'm your host, Eric, call sign W1LFH. Wait, I can explain. Just sit tight. We'll get in with our co-host later. It was a big debacle of the year. But, obviously, in normal fashion here, I'd like to introduce my partners in crime. How's it going, Paul?
Hey, it's Paul, N1OG.
And I'm Todd, and I am still W1STJ.
Yes, you are. All right. Well, we like I said, we alluded to a call sign change here, but we'll get into that in a second. But we got a few things we want to catch up on. As always, we want to let you guys know about our storefront at livefreeandham.com/shop. We want you to head over there, check out all of our merch, because there's some great tees and awesome products up there that just support the Live Free and Ham community. But at the same time, you get to wear proudly. I know being at Nearfest, I bumped into a bunch of people. They were all excited. They knew who we were. They were excited to see it. They were, they were glad to get the Live Free and Ham stickers for sure. That was a big plus for me. I don't know about you, Paul. Did you hand out a bunch of them?
Yeah, I think I only got maybe 5 left.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Okay. 5 of your own stickers or 5 of the Live Free and Ham?
No, the Live Free and Ham ones. I still got plenty of my own.
Okay. I was going to say, yours are pretty popular. So with that, head over to the store, check that stuff out. And those that have actually purchased from us, we appreciate the support. And thank you, as always, for purchasing from the store and helping us out. And so with that, we've also got a couple of other things. You can always send us a review because we all love feedback. And the nice part is that we're getting some. And so we're excited to share that with you in a bit. But you can always use that SMS link in our description of every show. Just click it and send it, or you can use the old-fashioned way. Check out our forms on our website, or feel free to send us an email at livefreeandham@gmail.com. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you two, I'm sure, are going to enjoy it. So obviously, we are in the month of October. When this airs, you'll probably have already been notified if we have already scheduled our live stream. If not, keep an eye out for that, because we always want to make sure you're part of that. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell when you do see it. And we'd love to have your support and be part of the YouTube live stream. And so, as I alluded, we have some good news and we have bad news. And the good news is we now have a show call sign. We all have heard it. It's W1LFH. So a huge applause, for all of that. It's totally incredible and amazing. But yeah,
incredible.
We have some bad news, or I have some bad news. I made a snafu, and that snafu was in my transposing and cutting and pasting and all of these ridiculous forms that you have to fill in to get the vanity call sign. I accidentally cut and pasted in my own FRN number. And so when they processed it and took my call sign away. So as you see, I am the formerly known as N1JUR for at least a little while here. And until the FCC straightens that stuff out and I get my call sign back. And man, I miss my call sign. I can't tell you how many times over this weekend I tried to use the call sign, our club call sign, and was tripping over myself all the time. That it's definitely something I miss. So it's a sad day.
I requested N1JUR as my new vanity call sign, so we'll see who gets it first.
You're right, exactly. So the race is on. But for right now, I will formally identify as W1FLH.
LFH.
Yes. See, this is my problem. This is what I was tripping over all weekend. I could never get Lima Foxtrot Hotel. It was always Hotel Foxtrot Lima. Finally, after a while, in frustration, I would yell out, "Live Free and Ham," and somebody would be like, live what? And then finally get into the, to bust the pile up. So all good either way. But with that, we'll keep you updated and tell you a little bit more about that in the future once we get it all sorted out and I get back to being the original N1JUR. So, all right. So now that we've gotten over that little craziness there, let's get into one of our first segments here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
Hey everybody, we got some news.
Slow down, Boog. Let me handle this. We've got some news. I've got bad news and bad news.
I have reviewed ship's personnel, Captain.
Congratulations, you've got mail.
All right.
All yours, Todd.
All right. So we did get an email. And we got this email from Dave, KB1OJW. I'm going to read you what he said. He said, well, he goes, hey, you guys are always whining. I don't know if we're whining. We're just begging or whatever about no one contacting us. So here goes. I met one of you at the Marlboro Ham Fest in 2023. So that was last year, not this year. Yep. And subscribed right away. I always listen to each podcast. One thing I'd like to tweak, like Todd, me, he's going for his extra. And I enjoy the test questions. I kind of wish that after each test question is answered, you would spend a bit of time explaining the correct answer. That would help reinforce the right answer. And you know what? I agree with him. I think it would be helpful. I go on Hamfest on Ham Study. I do that when I get the answer wrong or I don't know it or I don't understand. I hit that little question mark and it explains. So I think we're going to try that today, right, Paul?
Yeah, message received, and we will absolutely implement that.
You're 5'9", and we heard you loud and strong.
So it says, other than that, thanks for creating informative and entertaining podcast about our hobby. So thank you, KB1OJW. We're going to take your advice and we're going to add that to my testing if we will go over the answer and why it is what it is. So thank you for sending us an email, and we encourage everyone who's listening, send us an email. Tell us what you think. Good, news, bad. We can make fun of Eric and his loss of call sign. I didn't even know you could do that, but Eric figured out a way to do it. So now he's not going to. Now, if I go out and do a POTA this week with him, he won't be so famous. We'll actually get through an activation without having to have a 30 Q. So it's, I love your YouTube channel.
You have a fighting chance. Is that what you're getting at?
And after I take over N1JUR, I will be taking over his YouTube channel as well. Just joking.
Here you go, Todd.
Okay, then here's my counter offer.
Yes, that's my counter offer for now. We'll go from there. All right. Cool.
Well,
all right.
Dave, thank you. I think you were was he the first one that's really sent us one?
We had one more before that kind of kicked us off. So
yeah,
he's the second.
So you're the second, but you're the first one I remembered. So thank you for that. And you'll see on this episode, after we get the questions, we'll explain why the answer is what it is.
Yep. And it may actually turn in a different route because Todd may be scoring hundreds the whole entire time through all 7 elements or whatever elements we have to go through.
Well, we're still gonna go over that why the answer is the answer, even if I get it right.
Oh, okay. That's good for me. I like that because I need the help.
That's for sure. Okay. Because on the live show, I think I went 3 for 3, and Eric, you went.
Mm-hmm.
Paul,
yep.
That was the sign.
One.
You went 2.
Oh. I could use a good ass kick. I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
Only when it comes to ham radio tests.
I don't let Eric let this down. My wife and his wife, and we went out to where'd we go to that board? We went out to Boards and Brew, yeah. And I just made sure that she knew that I got 3 out of 3, and he only got 2 out of 3. So
superb.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. All right. Well, that is always a great. Keep the feedback coming, folks. We appreciate it and we love it, and so we want to keep hearing from you guys. So good, bad, and ugly. Send it our way, like Todd said. So with that, let's get into
Doing good.
Good.
Doing
good.
good.
You do. That's good.
You good? You good?
You're doing good.
Absolutely, I do. Good. Good.
Doing good, Bob. Doing real good.
Right now, my only outlet is my ham radio.
All right. Well, this is our favorite segment, like we like to call doing good or do good. And with that, if it's your first time listening, do good is all a kind of a brain trust that we created because we were tired of hearing all the lids. We were tired of hearing the complaints. We were tired of hearing about how bad clubs are, so forth and so on. So we asked you guys, and we polled all of our listener base and said, hey, we want to do something good. We want to hear your good stories. We want to hear what awesome stuff is happening in your club. So we created this segment, and yeah, it's been a struggle. Barely. I mean, every time we get get feedback from somebody, yes,
very little good going on these days.
Oh my gosh, every time, and it's trite and sarcasm that comes back with the, hey, this is how the good stuff is going on in our club. So here, add to it. So again, we appreciate it. Bring it on. We want to hear it. And as always, you can reach us via 2 or 3 ways. And the first one, obviously, is you can send us an email, livefreeandham@gmail.com. I know it's a little old-fashioned, but that's one way you can submit your do good. The other option is we've got a new whiz-bang form on our website. If you go up to livefreeandham.com/do good, all one word, you can fill in the form and tell us a little bit about your do good story, and we'll be glad to share it on. But if you're the Pierre Resistance, as they say, and you're one of those go-getters, then send us a win link. Send it to Paul, actually, not me, because my win link doesn't work, and I'm too lazy to get my butt in gear to fix it. Maybe one day you can he'll come over and fix it for me, and then we'll go from there. But
there
if
you
you
go.
send it via
In the meantime,
you send it via win link, then we want you to be on the show. So whether it's a recorded show or it's one of our live streams, we want you to come on and hang out with us and share your story. Obviously, if you were last month's live stream, you would have been privy to Mike's do good story, N2MAK. That was a great story, and all the stuff that he's doing in his club and what their club's doing in New York. And so we're looking for stuff like that. And Carlos, K9OL, Life at Terminal Velocity, came through this week with his email. And so he's sharing his story, and he used the form. So if Carlos can use the form, then you can use the form. There's no reason, no excuse, nothing. And so Carlos writes, doing good. Well, the Fort Wayne Radio Club W9TE and Allen County Amateur Radio Technical Society helped with the Allen County Safety Fair in Fort Wayne in early September. As Carlos says, they spread the gospel of ham radio. Love them. God bless them all. And help spread the word about how amateur radio can help when things go bad. And we, actually funny as we're talking about tonight, a little bit about that. So it'll be good. And so also he recommends the Whitley County Amateur Radio Club, WC9AR. Every year there's a 100-mile race. Oh my gosh, that's long. At Chano Lake State Park, which is also a Potter Park because he listed it here. So you heard him. I guarantee he's probably stationed at that park doing comms for them and also activating at the same time. But he says this club always helps the race by providing operators at checkpoints along the race for getting information back to race management. And as well as talks a little bit more about how the status of runners and the course. The race takes place, I guess, on October 12th and 13th, which is actually coming up soon. So if you're in the area, and you know of that club, and you want to volunteer, head over to them, and I'm sure they would love the support and continue to provide communications for the race itself. It looks like they have 13 different stations and 5 different shifts, and the race is a 2-day race. Wow! So if you belong to a club, or you hang out with a bunch of guys and gals doing POTA meetups, we want to hear about it. Share the ham radio gospel. The ham radio hobby does some awesome stuff in it, and we want to continue to spread that message. So send us your stories, and like we said, we will be glad to feature them on our next episode or have you on one of our live streams. So with that, we now get into our ever fun fun little segment here that we call
And now for something a little extra with Todd W1STJ.
All right. Well, you've heard it here. This is where we help Todd study for his extra class license. And in each episode, we pick 3 questions from the extra class question pool to test his knowledge and hoping he gets the upgrade to extra. And so if you'd like to follow along, you can always head over to hamstudy.org, which is a great resource. And we love the app. And it'll help you prepare. Like we use it on our show every time we test Todd to prepare for your test. And it's recommended by 3 out of 4 volunteer examiners because the ARL was unavailable for comment at the time of when I ran the survey. So without further delay, hand it over to our VE Quizmaster and dear friend Paul. Take it away. Let's drill him.
Hallelujah. Preach the gospel of the Bible.
Hey, I'm ready, Lord Jesus.
All right, Todd. We are on sub-element number 4. And question number 1 tonight is, which trigger mode is most effective when using an oscilloscope to measure a linear power supply's output ripple? Is it A, level, B, line, C, single shot, or is it D, edge?
I'm going to go with A, level. That's what Eric's got.
All right, well, I'd have to say I should pay attention to the question. That way, if I answer wrong, I at least know what I was trying to read. Trigger mode is most effective when using an oscilloscope to measure a linear power supply's output ripple. That would have to be I'd say using an oscilloscope linear. So it would have to be the line B.
Okay, so Todd said A, and A is incorrect. Eric said B, and B is correct.
Great job!
So for further context, an oscilloscope plots voltage over time, but that won't be very helpful unless it is able to find the point where the pattern repeats. Otherwise, it would just be showing a pattern at a random point in time. So a trigger is used to determine when the beginning of the pattern is. Line triggers are edge triggers that look for the 50% level of the selected slope on the AC power line mains connected to the oscilloscope. So in other words, whenever the 50% level is crossed, it uses that as a reference point. A line trigger is useful when measuring power supplies, inverters, and rotating machinery that are line frequency dependent. And so a test hint provided for you is that you measure a linear power supply output ripple, or linear contains line.
That's what I did. I literally went linear. Okay, linear line. that made sense in a weird way, but like, yeah, I don't. Electronics.
Yeah, I did the same. I did the same. Logical conclusion. Well, linear line. Yep.
Yep. Good. Well.
All right. So, question number 2. What is the effect of aliasing on a digital oscilloscope when displaying a waveform?
I know this one.
A, calibration of the vertical scale is no longer valid. B, the waveform DC offset will be inaccurate. C, excessive blanking occurs, which prevents display of the waveform. Or is it D, a false, jittery, low-frequency version of the waveform is displayed? And you should know this because you've already gotten this one correct on another episode.
I did?
Yeah, you did.
Oh. All right. Well, I'm going with D.
Any argument there, Eric?
No, yeah, though I remember the jittery part. Yep, I would go with D2 as well there.
Yes, D is correct.
All right. Ooh, now you have a choice here, Todd.
I'm getting the next one wrong, so I don't have to hear the song.
All right. So just to quickly explain the example, Nyquist's sampling theorem states that the highest frequency that can be unambiguously reconstructed is at half the sampling rate, and above this, aliasing occurs. So if one should sample at 20 megahertz, signals of up to 10 megahertz can be reconstructed. So generally, an oscilloscope sampling at 20 megahertz will have filters to reject signals above 10 megahertz for this reason. So memory aid, when you read aliasing in the question, think of alias as a false name. This will drive you to the correct answer choice.
Okay.
All right.
Nice.
Or just memorize
And for the, yeah, or that. It's important to understand it, but it's one of those things where really, unless you get to using an oscilloscope and having somebody explain to you these things, that's when it truly makes sense.
Yep.
But for the third and final question, Todd, we've got, what could be the cause of local AM broadcast band signals combining to generate spurious signals on the MF or HF band? Is it A, one or more of the broadcast stations is transmitting an overmodulated signal? B, your station receiver IF amplifier stage is overloaded? C, you're receiving skywave signals from a distant station? Or is it D, nearby corroded metal connections are mixing and re-radiating the broadcast signal?
I think I'm going to hear the song. I'm going to go with D.
Well, I am definitely going to go with B, overloaded.
You're going to go with B, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, Todd's right.
Yeah. So we both got 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
So-
man. Wow. This is a record.
So to clarify the answer, strong AM signals, such as those from local broadcast stations, can be detected or mixed by a kind of nonlinear junction from a diode to even a rusty bolt, much like the old school cat's whisker detector. So broadcast stations are regularly monitored and would notice any kind of abnormal transmission, so a mistake on their part is highly unlikely. However, there's a silly hint. AM music, look for the answer with metal band, aka Metallica. I don't know if that'll help you, but it's there as a silly hint, and so yeah, that is the
I would have
answer.
thought like AM broadcast would have been like anybody who's like AM broadcast gets overloaded, whether or not your antennas nuts are tight and you're working 100%. But okay, I get it. Makes sense.
But here you go, Todd.
Sing with us, people. Raise your lighters. All right. Well,
hey, that's not
what do you
bad.
have to say for yourself?
Hey, I'm getting there, right? I need to study that section a lot more. I'm not doing very well on my I think I'm at 22%.
Well, when you just cut into
you did
that, right?
confide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you did confide in us that you got yelled at by the app for taking a 4-day hiatus.
I did. So I didn't realize I did take a 4 days. I hadn't studied. So you last studied 4 days ago. So now I got to get on it every day, or the thing will start yelling at me. For long, it'll alerting me like everything else.
Well,
it's all right. Oh, you know what? I'm telling you, this app is what's going to get me my extra. It really helps. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'd agree, man. And so if you're on the journey, like Todd is, not Stod, like Todd is, the soon-to-be N1JUR, and you're studying for your technician general or extra class license, then handstudy.org is an awesome resource for getting your ticket. And so, like we say every episode, if you've recently received your license or you upgraded, let us know. We want to recognize you on the next episode for all your hard work, all the effort you put in for it. And you can email us at livefreeandham@gmail.com. If you're on our Discord, you can hit us up there too. Or if you're just next to the app and you're listening to us on your podcast app of choice, go into the notes section, hit that SMS link, and send us, an update. We want to hear from you. So, we want to share with you and, and rejoice and continue to welcome you into the hobby if it's being a technician or you got upgraded. All right. Well, we wrapped up all of that, but, in usual fashion, let's talk. How's your Ham Radio week's been, guys? And start with you, Paul. How's your Ham Radio week, bud?
Well, let's see. I did a lot of park hunting this week. We did have one day where it was really rough. We got hit with a big magnetic storm. But otherwise, I think the highlight of the week, ham radio wise, was Nearfest.
Yeah.
And so that was my first time experiencing any type of a ham expo, flea market kind of thing. I had a ton of fun. I went both days. I wish I had gotten to spend more time on Friday, because like Saturday, by the time I got there at 1 o'clock, like half the people had packed up and left.
Yeah.
But I did find some good deals on things that I really wasn't looking for, nor did I want. But
so,
But,
any interesting deals you find? I assume with Nearfest. What did you walk away with?
So there was a guy that had a whole bunch of old cop stuff, and he had he had Panasonic Tough books that were from the sheriff's department. So I picked one of those up for $25,
Nice.
and he had a an SUV police light bar, right? And I said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, what do you want for that?" He goes, "Give me $5, you can have it." So I got myself a police light bar.
What are you going to do with the police light bar?
Put it on his boat.
Well, I figure for Halloween it'll be great in the front yard. So I'll just I'll wire it up to a battery and I'll have the lights going. But at some point I want to try and figure out. I know there's a way to change the LED color. So change the LED color from blue to yellow or maybe green, and yeah, just rock it on the truck.
Cool.
I think you should have it at field day, and you should have it like mounted by your station, and then just have it going all night long, just red, white, like an emergency.
With green lights, yeah.
Yeah.
Or every time you make a far distant contact on 80 meters or something like that.
It's like instead of ringing the bell, you flash the lights.
Flash the lights.
And you're blinding me.
Contact. Paul made a contact. He made another one.
So, questions. I mean, obviously, all three of us went to Nearfest, either the 1 or 2 days. So, those that may not know, just quick segue. Nearfest is our annual or biannual ham fest that all of us hang out here in the New England area with. This year was kind of special because we got, I wouldn't say kicked out of, but we were kind of encouraged to move on from our location that they've been with for a long time. We moved over to a new one over closer to us, which was awesome, which I'm really happy with. That it's like 20 minutes away instead of 35 or 40 or whatever it is. But I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the one thing if this is for your first Hamfest, you may not have been aware is that with Nearfest traditionally, everybody shows up on Thursday afternoon and camps out when they were over at Deerfield, camps out Thursday, and then they open the gates like at 7 a.m. and then everybody rushes in who slept over the night before to basically set up shop. This year, I think that you showed up on Thursday, so people had already been camping Thursday night. So that's probably why they bolted Saturday afternoon, because it was like, dude, I've been here for 2 days already. I'm ready to go home. So that's probably why you didn't see much going on.
Well, plus it was beautiful weather, so.
Yeah, it was great. Well, I honestly think I liked it better there than I did at the other facility, only because it was more compact, meaning you could run into people more often. I mean, I would go wander and then find you guys, and bump into other people and stuff, and it was cool. But like I said, Near Fest to me, it's like I just picture all these wives, the YL saying, "You see all this stuff? Bring it to Near Fest and come home with nothing."
Nothing.
Because a lot of it is a lot of old stuff. Like I saw a scanner. I think it was my first scanner as a kid that they had. It was like an 8-channel scanner. I'm like, oh crap, I had one of those. Like $20, you can have it. I'm like, yeah, I don't need another scanner.
Nope. If you put it in my car and pay me $20, I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you can find. I mean, I got some self-closing tweezers. Which,
well, what's a good segue then? So I would say, Todd, how's your hemorrhage week been?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Near Fest. Yeah, Near Fest. That was my big thing. And I got a from, I think it's what is it, Lido. I got a speaker mount for my speaker
Headrest,
for my car. Yeah, on the headrest, and I did switch it to the other side. It's much better being on the driver's side, but it basically mounts underneath your headrest. It's like a bar, and it attaches out and fits a lot better. I just used to have the speaker just kind of sitting on the side between, like just in between the main seat and the headrest, that metal piece. I just had it sticking in there, and this is much more professional looking and cleaner. So I got that. Works well. Very easy to install. No holes, no screws or anything. So
you get anything at the Hamfest itself or no?
Just my tweezers.
Yeah,
got a couple tweezers. There was a cool guy there though. I got his card. He made a Baofeng repeater.
What?
In one of you didn't see that in the
no?
The guy, he was on the left. So he has like one of those like little clear plastic, like watertight, like you put your phone in. And he had a Baofeng and some other thing. He made a repeater, and he showed me how it worked. But yeah, you could, like, if you were, you were hiking or whatever, and you had a bunch of people out, he had his own repeater. It was like a little Baofeng radio. It was pretty cool. So I talked to him a little bit and thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, and I saw you guys, and then I kind of got tired of it and went home. And I was home by 1, so it was good.
Yeah, I know. Lightning fast too.
Huh?
Probably very lightning fast too, right? Yeah, it was like
to get home,
didn't take no traffic. Right?
Yeah. It took me like 15 minutes. I was like, oh well. Let's talk before we go on about Near. Let's talk about Eric and him not knowing how to follow a GPS. He tells me it's in New Boston, and we leave Goffstown, and the next town over is New Boston. And next thing you know, I'm like, shit, we're like 8 miles from Concord. Like, where the hell is he taking us,
dude?
Did he tell you this, Paul? Did he tell you this, Paul?
I don't think I did.
A little bit.
So, all right, my mistake.
So
we went to
breakfast.
Well, true. All right, I do. I'll admit. So here's my problem: is that we went to breakfast at in Goffstown, which is literally just like a town from Near Fest, which is 20 minutes away, down one Route 13. And if you all know highways in New Hampshire, if you've been in here, when we have storms and stuff like that, or kids just get bored, they steal stuff, or the signs get knocked down. And so my problem is that I had a guy I was friends with and picked up over in Hudson to bring with me. And so we were in the car and we were just talking. And so it was a blast to, just have a conversation. We were just bouncing back and forth, talking about HF and a whole bunch of other things. That when we were cruising down 13, by the time I made the trigger in my head, that I'm like, wait a minute, we're going too far here. At this point, I had no GPS to be able to get, any directions at this point. So I'm like, all right, I know 114 travels somewhere up into Concord, and I'm going to have to, take the long haul back. And so I radioed to Todd at that point when we finally got
after we left Henniker.
It was
towards. I'm like, where the hell is this place? I thought this.
I missed 13. I know I missed the turn, so I was just like, oh. And so I radioed Todd. I'm like, yeah, dude, I was busy talking with Brad, who was with me in the truck, and we were just shooting the breeze. And I totally forgot to pay attention to where I had to take the slight left. And, because I didn't, we had to backtrack, and we were like, we still got there at 9:30. I mean, it wasn't like we missed whatever, but
it was a nice ride. I was listening to my pod. I'm like, oh, this is a nice ride. We hit some dirt roads. It was cool. I'm like, this would have been a good ride if I was on my motorcycle and I was just cruising for the day. But instead, He's like, "Oh, we'll be there in like 20 minutes." I'm like, "I thought the place was like 10 minutes from the restaurant. We've been driving 40 minutes."
So would you head out like you were going to Clough?
Well, yeah, or by New England College, so up by 114. So I literally took 114 all the way up instead of back onto
Yeah,
13.
so in Henniker, and then we started heading towards whatever that road is to Concord. And I'm like, "Oh," like when I have to go to that residential up in Windsor, that's the road I take to come back. And I'm like, "Where the hell?" I'm like, "Maybe it's not New Boston. Maybe it's in like Bow or like I was thinking like maybe it's in yeah." So it was quite funny. And then
Well, you know, Brad and I had,
and then he pulls up. I'm right behind him, and he just takes a right. I give my money, and I try to go. The guy's like, "No, you got to go that way." I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "But my buddy went that way." Yeah, he shouldn't have gone that way. So I park, nice little parking lot, nowhere to find Eric. Couldn't find him. I text him. I'm calling him on the radio. Nothing, because I had my tone wrong, so no one could hear me anyway.
PL on. Yep.
I had a PL tone on a simplex
and a shift.
So yeah, so it was off. So I just walking around, and I'm walking out like on this back side, and I see his truck like parked on a hill, like the last truck. I'm like behind a building. I'm like, what the hell is he parking way out here for?
It was so weird because like you pulled into Nearfest, and if you've been there, it's like a one road bridge to get in, and then it forks. And I would have thought you had to go left, but like there was a car already sitting there, and the car that I was in front of had gone right into literally all of the booths and the flow of people walking and everything else like that. And I'm like, this can't be right. This is like, why are they sending us through the crowds of people? Like it's silly. And so like I'm getting all the dirty looks as I'm driving through at 2 miles an hour. And people are like standing in the middle of the road, and I'm just like, they sent me I like, it just didn't make sense. So I parked literally all the way in the back of the fair and walked it all the way back. But and then I had to drive all the way back through because there was no way to get out that side.
Right.
So I was like, oh man, comedy of errors. So,
but unfortunately, the handicap lot was right there. You take that right, and it was there on the left.
You were good.
Yeah.
And Paul's radio worked too. He was the first that I heard him coming in. It's like, M1OG, anyone around? Yep, we're all here.
Yeah.
Todd and I were like trying to remember how to set. If you ever wanted to see two hopeless hams trying to figure out how to set the FTD 3DR into simplex mode and take the repeater shift off, you got to hold down the display as a hard press, and then you have to go into config. But that took Todd and I like half an hour to
20
figure
minutes.
out.
We're sitting there like trying to get it done, and I'm like testing.
Yep.
It was good though.
Yeah, mine did the same thing. So when I got out of the truck, I was standing by the side of the truck trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Took a minute.
Well, you didn't have to tell us that because you could have looked like a professional, but
Yeah, it's all right because I'm not.
Ham radio makes me feel dumb, and that's okay. We weren't wearing that.
That's okay. I was wearing the shirt.
Well, then I saw Tim. I ran into Tim outside the main box, Tim KC1 QDK, and I see his wife, and I see this like fold up, but it's like a wagon, and and then Mike QVO was there, and he was sitting in a chair, and Tim's wife sitting in a chair, and I'm like, I see this wagon, I'm like, oh man, what is Tim buying? But it wasn't for him buying, it was for the chairs, so they didn't have to lug the chairs around, they just pull the wagon. And I honestly thought like Tim was like in the thing, and he had like a list of things that he was getting, like amps or whatever. That's where my mind goes. I'm like, what is Tim getting now? But it was good. It was really cool to see everyone. I met some guys I talked to on the Epsom repeater, so I had a good time. It's more social for me than buying. I like the social aspect and just to hang out with people and do the ham radio thing.
Cool.
I saw Brian too. WO1 WOVES.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was looking for him earlier. I couldn't figure out where
he was in the back, like the back right. But so I said hi to him, and I told him, I said, I haven't been on the Friday in the net because the Goffstown repeater's been down, but it's up and running and supposed to be doing good. And he said that the net did drop a little bit in numbers with that repeater being out. I think all us local guys just rely on that repeater to get on the Wolf Den. But yeah, it was good.
Even though Pepperell's probably in range and definitely.
I think Pepperell was down for a while too, because it
was
wasn't before Goffstown went down. I think Pepperell went down. I don't know if it's up or not. I can get both of them, but
cool. All right. Well, for me, yeah, Nearfest was a big thing. I got to see. I didn't expect Chris KI1P to show up with his contesting van. Loved that van. Loved hanging out with him. Him and I kind of strolled around, chatted about channels and stuff. And while we were kind of walking around, he's cut his we'll say connections with people and antennas and stuff like that. So every 5 minutes, people will see him and be like, "Hey, I got an antenna I need to sell you," or "Hey, I got this for your van," or whatever. And so, he was always kind of, being pulled left and right to, be shown, the latest and greatest stuff for his contesting van. But it was fun, and so we talked about
be so popular.
He got outdone though. He was parked right next to the fire truck with the ladder truck with the antenna on it.
Yeah, that was that was actually like a repeater. That whole thing was set up as a repeater.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. But he was right next to it. Like normally he's like one of the bigger antennas, like on the. But I saw him at the right when I was leaving, or close to right before I saw you guys at the end. Before I was leaving, he was walking down, and him and some guy were carrying some big pieces of equipment. Like he was like, "Ugh." I'm like, "Uh-oh, what's he buying now?"
Well, we'll find out soon enough when he's back on, near. So yeah, we hung around there, and then I didn't get all the call signs of all the listeners that we bumped into that either recognized my call sign or recognized Live Free and Ham, and we appreciate all you guys saying hello, and we love to hear that you guys listen to the podcast because it encourages us, but we enjoy meeting all of our listeners. So that was always fun to put names to faces and meet new people. I also got a chance to talk repeater shop a little bit with W1ASS, who's the Epson repeater owner, and so we might have him on in the future to talk, to give our listeners some, viewpoints from an actual repeater owner, and take some, bit of schooling and learn a little bit about what it takes to kind of run a repeater and all the crap that repeater owners deal with.
Multiple repeater.
Yeah. He's got a nice network.
If you're in the like southern New Hampshire, southern Maine, northeast Massachusetts, central New Hampshire, western New Hampshire, southwestern New Hampshire, you got to try that Epson repeater. Its footprint is huge. And I've worked people. I was up in a town called Warren, New Hampshire, which is in the middle of, it's almost in Vermont. It's probably like a 20-minute drive to Vermont, but it is like surrounded by mountains and peaks, and there's nothing up there. And I was sitting in the parking lot, and I just went on it and called out, and Anthony, the guy that's always on that repeater, who's kind of made that repeater pretty popular, got me. And I said, yeah, I'm in Warren. I'll keep talking to you on my way back down south. And Campton, Plymouth. I was at the Walmart in Plymouth in that parking lot, which is up on a hill, 5'9", easy. So that repeater is a good repeater. It's got a lot of space, and there's a lot. It's very active now. I would say within the last year, it's been pretty active.
Yeah, I'd say he was telling me there was like about, on average, somewhere about 60 different new hams that he's tracked that has been using the machine and actively participating in nets and stuff like that. So he was quite happy.
Yeah, they have a commuter net called, I think they call it the round table at 5:00. So I think it's every night. I don't know if it's on the weekends, but definitely during the week.
Yeah, and he had his 900 megahertz linked repeater set up over the weekend for a lot of those P25 guys and stuff. So it was good to see. He offers a whole lot. So and to hear some of his stuff, but at the same time, he's I think going to be fun to have on and talk about that side of the stuff.
I love his call sign though too.
Yeah, W1ASS. As we all know, I'm sure W1SEX and ASS were taken and then taken off the ever going to be purchasing future vanity call sign list. So,
well, I guess he told Ralph that he picked that call because he wanted a call sign everyone would remember.
Can't miss that.
I was like, oh, like people would be like, oh, you're on the Epson. I'm like, oh, the ass repeater. Yeah, that's it. You want to get on that ass repeater?
Yeah, get off my ass. So yeah, outside of that, I was there Friday and got to hang out with all you guys and got to meet some new people from obviously that repeater and just in general. And it was just good. Like Todd said, I didn't go to buy stuff. I went more for the social side of things. I did buy a few kind of like, you always go to the bits and bobs table inside the vendor and buy the connectors and everything. You're like, I think I have one of these, and you find that you always end up buying the same connector that you never really need. So I think again, I bought a couple of 2L259 right angle 90-degree ones, and I need the two female versions instead of the male female version. And it's like, why do I do that? I should just put a list together and remember.
You got there's guys in there that go to and they have the list of and they're going through and they're checking off and they're picking. There's so many of them. Like if you need a connector for anything, that's the place to go because they've got every type of connector you could possibly think of.
Well, it's funny because Brad, this is his first time. He's from North Carolina or South Carolina.
South Carolina.
And, yeah. So he was like, this was his first foray into any ham fest whatsoever, like Paul is a little bit, but he was just like, oh, I need this connector. I need this connector. I need this attachment. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, is there anything on this table that I need? I'm like, well, you could get these ferrites. And so he grabbed a few and, somebody was, and one thing I was surprised at, I don't know if you guys caught it. Remember the, when we went to Hamex and, why did I just forget his name? Was it Mike? Did the Wago connector to Power Pole? Was it Mike who does yeah? So he was selling it for a decent price. It was like 2 for $20. They were selling in that barn,
right?
Yeah, those things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that same connector they wanted $20 a pop. One had them for 25 a pop, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? I could buy a bag of Wago connectors for $25."
Yeah, they weren't they what 3 for? I got 3 of them, 3 for 20. I think they were, but these were better.
That's amazing.
These were way better than the ones that they had there because these are smaller. The other ones were like huge. I was like, what is that? Yeah.
So, kind of a little, price gouging here and there, but that's, typical for, I guess, a Friday. I'm sure Saturday they probably dropped to like 15 or whatever by, the day's end. So most people could, steal them up then. But I saw some boat anchors. It was hung around with the Motorola guys from, the Moto table and learned a little of their speak, although I don't know if I'm ready to dive into that pool quite yet. So we'll see how that one goes.
P25 world.
Oh yeah, or just 900 megahertz in general. So we'll see how that. I know KC1NID. He's doing that for us, and so he's agreed to learn everything, and I agreed to help him put together a presentation and then present the information for our club so we can get more people on 900 megahertz. But I'll let him go through all of the difficulties and struggles of trying to get software and hardware set up, and then I'll smooth sailing to 900 megahertz. So all good. All right. Well, so with that, let's kind of dive into our topics tonight. So, obviously, when this show airs, more than likely we'll probably be through, I think, our second hurricane that's rolled through the Florida panhandle and into, the southern states there. But we just recently kind of came off of the latest one that's really did a lot of damage to the South Carolina, Georgia, Florida area. A lot of storm surge, and they're just Tennessee, all of those areas, all major damage. I mean, I see videos after videos of people and just the cleanup process and all of the craziness in that. But one of the things I kind of did, and just listening and kind of seeing it from an outside looking in perspective, I was curious to see how the emergency communication side of stuff would work, because you always wonder, and if you're like me in our local areas, we have those MCOM groups that meet the areas that race these folks, and they talk, they do their training and their drills, and I kind of stay out of that because I'm not really like that type. I'm not cut to like want to do road races and stuff like that. Now maybe I should, and just to kind of get a feel for it, but I'll put a pin in that for now. But so I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to tune into some of the nets because there's a couple of guys that were doing live broadcasts over the 2-meter repeater that was in South Carolina. We probably heard some of those communications, and most of that was like welfare messages and people running like message nets for voice. And one of the things that kind of was popping in my head while that was going on was like, okay, so where's all the other technology stuff? Because like we fought hard for a long time to get the baud rate taken off, like things like WinLink, and every time one of those disasters rolled around, we had to get a waiver from the FCC to allow us to be able to send faster symbol rates and stuff like that. And so I was looking for those stories, and I didn't see them for a while. They're starting to pop up now, I think, but so I kind of thought I was like, okay, so what about WinLink? What are we doing in terms of the communication side? Because I know when I communicate over radio, especially over HF or even just in general on repeaters, voice is a tough thing, especially when you're trying to like confirm messages and send messages and make sure you get to the right locations. That the stuff I was hearing was I was like, what are they doing with that stuff when they get it? Like, were they like, okay, well, we're going to try to get it to this person, but obviously roads are closed or damaged or whatever. Like, how are they spending? Like, what's that communications network look like? But then I was thinking, okay, well, what's bigger than that? Like, what happens to all of like the Aries racy stuff that they were training for? Like, did any of that get acted upon? Did that start to like get into motion quickly, or was it just so devastated down there that they just got blindsided? And so I got thinking, and I'm like, okay, how effective is like a lot of our ham radio Aries racy stuff, and do we see like that strong sense of like, I don't know, we'll say a enablement, or getting out there and saying, okay, when a disaster strikes, do those guys and gals that have been training and practicing and whatever, are they starting to get these nets up and running? And I didn't feel that way, at least by listening to some of the stuff I heard. I heard people running informal nets, to try to get some of these messages into people and out of the disaster site. But I thought it was like, okay, what does that look like? And so I don't know. Let's kind of step back. And so, what is your take on it? I mean, obviously, you guys pay attention to any of that stuff, as it was going on? Listen to any of that at all?
So I've definitely been trying to follow closely with the recovery and assistance efforts that are going on down there. And I've been a Aries member since right after I got licensed.
Okay.
I haven't done a ton with Aries, but like I've watched their training videos, and I have binders of all the frequencies and all of the if things were to go wrong locally, what the plan is, right? But one of the things that kind of always, I guess, made me question, right, was in a worst case scenario, you aren't going to want to overcomplicate things by using FL Digi and WinLink, and especially if you don't have power, right, and you're running everything off of battery, assuming that uh, maybe you've got solar abilities, but even if you don't, right? I mean, even a battery is a commodity, right? And you need to conserve your commodity because you don't know when you're going to be able to recharge it, right? Just like fuel for your generators or whatever, like those are consumables that you have to conserve, especially in this type of situation. So, what makes sense to me is what some other groups that I'll not name, things that they're doing, right? Which is, yes, they have the digital modes as a fallback, but they do active practicing in voice, and not only over HF, UHF, VHF, but also CB, FRS, GMRS. Because if you're thinking about it, okay, most of these people that are getting trapped, right, and they're literally cut off from the world because there's no way for them to go anywhere. Well, even if they've got a ham radio license, you're talking about running portable, some kind of battery. Are they on the roof of their house because of the flooding? And so the logistics of it is really, really complex. So you want to make sure that you can communicate to the people in need as simply and easily as possible. That's where voice excels.
Okay.
So if we've got people who are monitoring, channel 3 on FRS, channel 3 on GMRS, channel 3 on CB, plus, select calling frequencies on, the ham bands, you're going to hear those non-hams and be able to offer some type of communication relay or offering assistance to them. And so I think that's where the private citizen is going to excel versus the Aries head guy who's certified to operate at the fire station, and he's the only guy, or he's one of three guys. Well, what if those three guys can't get to the fire station, operate, right? Like, because they're cut off and they're stranded also. So I think when it comes to emergency communications and what they're doing down there right now is exactly in line with this. They're using simple voice communications, easy to get messages from one person to another, whether they're a licensed or not.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of buy that. Didn't think that, but what do you say, Todd? I mean, how much have you been listening to the live message traffic?
Well, I've been trying to follow, not so much. I never even thought to do the ham radio. Normally, I listen to, like, when there's hurricanes out in the Caribbean. They normally assign a HF frequency not to use to do it. But I think with this one, the problem is they can't go anywhere because the roads are either washed out or there's trees down and no one can get to them.
Landslides. Yep.
Landslides, like they're just like you said, they're just disconnected from the world, and there's no electricity. And even the major city, like I think it's Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very expensive kind of high end place to live. It's like wherever you go, you got to go to Asheville. That's like the ritzy place to go. It's destroyed. I mean, I've seen pictures of it, and I'm thinking, like, you know, people aren't going to have, if they don't have internet, they don't have anything. I mean, the voice is going to be the way to communicate, right? And my son asked me, he goes, Dad, if everything is broken except your ham radio and the house is burning down, like, can I get on the ham radio and ask for help? And I said, well, you should get your license, son. But
So you said no to him, basically.
yeah. Well, my wife's like, if everything's down, you can get on Dad's radio and scream for help. But
Yep.
I think more with ham radio and what hams do is we kind of practice and perfect the art of communicating on the radio, right? When people who watch me do POTA and have never seen it before and watch me do a pile up, like, they're like, how did you learn all that? Because we hear it, it's just like, we hear it day in and day out. But the way we can work through nets, like being a net control, right, and keeping that in order and running the net, and then like someone pops in, you can't hear them, and going back and passing it on to the next guy. And there's different ways to do it, but that's what we do. That's why we get on the radio, is like we're really practicing for, I would say, like an emergency kind of situation. And I think that's where the hams become important. I'm not an Aries member, and I don't know much about it, but I think that any ham would be able to run, any active ham who does nets, does HF, is on the radio speaking, could basically run a fire station and be the head of communication if they just have those skills. And the reason we have those skills is because we get to play radio and we practice,
Well,
not so much that we're.
I was gonna say, I think that when they were first starting a lot of those what we'll call welfare message nets that were going on local repeaters and even on HF, I heard, and I may be incorrect, and again, I am just like you, Todd. I don't do Aries or races. I've maybe participated in maybe one kind of localized road race type support for communication. So, I mean, obviously, we're going to defer to you, Paul, since you've studied the book and you know exactly. And so, give us a little grace here, a little bit, but from the outside looking in, I felt, at least listening to the message traffic, it was kind of more like someone running an informal net who didn't have a lot of the technical, because I was looking for that technical kind of like speak that you would expect, like they'd be short, abbreviated, very informative, more kind of actionary type messages versus like, hey, someone sending a radiogram, which is what it sounded like to me a lot when they were sending those messages. And I was like, I don't think that, like, I was like thinking in my head, like, that's not going to get to those people right now. I mean, it eventually will. And I would hope it would, they would spend the time funneling it down the line. But I would say, just like Paul said, there's not enough of those communications in line to be able to get that message down to that person at the local level, because all of the regular modes that we rely on, like internet and stuff like that, is unavailable at that moment.
Well, it's kind of like the way that we have those traffic nets, right? About sending a message to a certain ham. I remember when I was working third shift driving into work, there's always on the N1 IMO repeater, there's always a traffic net. And I know it was linked to a whole bunch of other repeaters. Um, but I think too is if someone is able to get a message, like let's say someone got and said, "Hey, this section is closed off and there's people there," and that gets messaged back to the central control, then maybe they can get that message to the helicopter pilots and say, "Hey, you need to go to this grid square and go check to see, because we know that there's people trapped there, and go check it out because we got confirmation from someone that was able to get on the radio and get through." So it may not be a direct connection, but in an emergency situation, it's about assisting others and getting them the supplies they need. So I mean, I think it's important, and I think a lot of people forget that communication in an emergency is the most important thing. I remember 9/11 when my friend was in the towers trying to get through to him on a cell phone, and it wasn't working. It was just done, you know. So radio is radio. If you can click the mic and you get the signal out there and you can receive it, you're good to go. And that's probably the only communication right now, that probably all that area in Georgia and that's isolated. That's probably all they have. And like, I like the idea of FMRS too, because everyone's got those radios, the kids do.
Yeah, I think that's I think something that's important more so now. Obviously, as we continue on with more of these hurricanes, and we obviously know, and thoughts and prayers are in those of the folks that are in the path of the next one that's coming through. Was that Martine? I can't remember what it's called. What's the name of this one?
Oh, Milton.
Milton, that's right.
And it looks like it's going right across, like right through Tampa,
Florida. Yeah.
right across the state.
And that's where most of the storm surge stuff, kind of came through with the first one, the Helene. So, yeah, my thought is two things. I subscribe to any mode and any way possible to get a message out in the shortest method possible that communicates exactly what needs to be done is important. And so, like Paul was saying, with having the right people at least in the positions is important, but those that step in per se before those folks get to the scene, whatever that, even if it's a ham radio, even in those circles, I think is still important. And so I applaud those folks that had some training to be able to get into those scenes and just start getting the messages gathered and put into some motion. And I'm sure probably they were funneled back up and got into some more formal processes down the road. But
Well, do you, Eric? I mean, do either of you think that if a disaster happened and you happen to be at a fire set at Central Command, say, and no one knew how to use a radio, do you think you would be able to do it? Like if they said, "Here, you got to get in there and start helping us." I mean, do you think you could?
I mean, operating a radio is operating a radio. You figure it out.
Yeah.
The complication, at least what I've come across locally with Aries, is you have to be approved to be in the EOC.
Right.
And so if you're not on that list ahead of time, you've gone through training and you are on the approved list, then you can't operate there.
Yeah, but what if you were the only one? Like Eric said, like the guys that are approved aren't there and you're there.
Well,
you're going to say,
like
well, we're not going to communicate until we get someone, huh?
Yeah.
But so that's my argument, where I'm saying that, while yes, it's great that Aries trains in all these ways, at the end of the day, you need to simplify everything. And I really like the Channel 3 thought process, where Channel 3 on every radio that's your calling. So if you're in distress, you call out on Channel 3. Somebody somewhere around you should be listening. So if more people know about that, more people start getting into that practice, then if you've got one ham say theoretically, one ham per, 20 miles, right? Well, that one ham can hear, every FRS radio, CB radio, and in their little radius. They can then relay that information, to maybe the Aries guy that's, listening on the other end. But
Sure.
it ultimately, I think it has to be simple, and it has to be something that anybody can call out on.
Well, and the funny thing with a lot of Aries races guys, which we don't talk about, which I kind of heard on another podcast talking a little bit about this, was that they have to deal with like turnover like there's no tomorrow. And so trying to keep those established relationships between the EOCs and our, volunteer groups, I'm sure is another, 20, full-time job. A lot of times just being able to properly, or even if there is any handoff of that kind of stuff of like when either hands change on the government side or, hands change on our side, who's making sure those relationships stay solid and, allow you to build that. And so, it kind of got me thinking. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that a lot of the, at least over the past couple of years, for me, observing, like there's a lot of push. We're making inroads, I should say, with ham radio into those areas. I think it would be good if we were seeing a lot more, which I think we will. But I think we also have to kind of clean up our act too to be able to kind of stay in line, like you said, with being able to have clear message deliverables, clear, plans in place that we practice, but more so that, anybody, in the ham community can pick up and, do with the, purpose of like, hey, when the SHFT, whatever, when the shit hits the fan, we'll say, I'm not doing abbreviations tonight, apparently. Sorry, my to younger audience here. That we can effectively try to be able to communicate the message and without getting tied up in jargon and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, but I've listened to some Aries nets that I can hit, and I've heard some Aries nets that have been absolutely horrible, like terrible community, like they can't even run a net, and whatever the reason is, and I think it's because those guys who are struggling with that aren't doing nets. Like I do the net every Sunday. I've been doing it for I don't know 3 years now, 4 years now, and I've been in different situations, right? Like today we got I couldn't hear someone, but then I heard them and I lost them, and I was say, hey, did anyone get that guy's call sign? And someone called, I mean, it was like that's part of running a net, and you learn that by experience. So think like with some of these Aries guys, I think that they do their monthly net or whatever, but they don't. That's all they do, right? Or they're not used to like communicating with people and getting curveballs. Like it's like I don't know, like it's like you have a script, right? But if something goes off on that script, you got to be able to respond to it, right? And you can't be like, hold on a second, let me look through my book to see what the next thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you learn that it's something that you can't be taught through a book or studying a test or anything. I think it's just by experience of being on the radio, and any
Well,
right,
good segue
right.
there.
But I mean, Paul, right? I mean, think about it. You the more we're on the radio, the more we're practicing, the more we're on different bands doing different things. You just get that experience, and then when something doesn't go right as planned, you adapt and adjust, and you're prepared to deal with it. And I think that there's some hams that can do that. And I think there's others that could use more practice. And like some hams, they get on, they like I've met so many guys that they see my like I'll leave my radio on at the flying field and people will be like, "Oh, you're a ham? Oh, me too. I'm not practicing though."
Right.
That's the point then. But I think that guy might have a harder time getting on a radio and start organizing and trying to manage information than someone like the three of us who are on the radio a lot, who do nets, who do HF, do POTA, and do WinLink and everything. I mean, we've got the experience and we just do it. So I think there's different levels, but I think the three of us, I think would have no problem if someone grabbed us and said, "Hey, you're in charge of communication. Go for it." And I think that we would be able to figure out a way to organize and get messages to where they needed to be.
Okay. So Any final thoughts on that, Paul, before I kind of shift gears? I want to kind of bring this to a little simpler level with us.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Todd's saying. I think e- the the average ham that even participates in a worked all states net has more experience already going into an emergency situation than a ham that has never done a net ever. So
Yeah,
yeah, 100% I agree that nets are fantastic practices on how to handle groups and group traffic and relays and that's an important skill to have.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of makes me thinking. So after all of this stuff that's going on and hearing all of the, the we'll say buzz about whether Aries or Races did all of their things right or wrong, or whether or not, we handed off in the right way or things got accomplished, it kind of got me thinking myself, like, it, if I'm at an individual level for myself, and I'll throw this to you guys too as well. Like, what am I doing, or what are you guys doing to kind of prepare for that stuff? I mean, obviously, we've been insulated a little bit. We've had our few ice storms that we got hit with 20 years ago. So I'm sure we're probably due for something soon. But what are you guys doing? Any suggestions, or like you want to share kind of what you guys have in place for things like that for when you get into emergency situation with, say we'll do weather, because that for me is, obviously a big one and just, recent on everyone's minds. What do you got in place now? And if you have nothing, like I'm going to say, and honestly put out there and say, I don't have anything in place. So outside of maybe batteries and first aid kit, which is the simple, basic kind of necessities, what are you guys preparing for, or are you doing any preparedness in that sense for your, kind of, emergency situation that might occur?
Well,
Well,
I guess the real question is, did either of the two of you
yeah,
prepare?
because I was gonna say, Paul is prepared for whatever
Well,
happens.
that
He's
was
gonna
a
be
layup
prepared.
for him. Yes.
Like, yeah, like I'm not. I don't even think. I mean, he can probably do like a whole month of shows just on being prepared. Like this guy has backpacks with change of clothes in them, like sitting, like whatever he needs. And every time I've been at field day and I need something, he always
He
has
has it.
has it. Like it's just like it's like going to my dad's house and I need a screw. He picks up every screw and saves it, and he knows where each screw is. And I'd be like, Dad, I need this size. Oh yeah, I got one of those downstairs. And he goes through this mess. That's you when it comes to preparedness. I
Mhm.
think for me, communication wise, I think the portable stuff that I have a solar panel, I have some batteries that I keep charged that I can continue to charge even if the electricity goes out through the solar panel. I've got multiple antennas, um, even like the portable ones that could continue to communicate. One of the
Mhm.
things I do want to get is they sell that at what was that? What's that main vendor that's always at Near Fest? They
The
sell all.
Quicksilver
It's
one?
like yes. What is it called?
Quicksilver?
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Quicksilver. So they always sell these little boxes. They're the ammo cans, but they got a little repeat. What do you call it? A dual band radio in there. Not an HT, but like 50 watts. They got a battery. They got some power things, and they got a little antenna that can screw on, like it's just like a HD antenna
PNC
or
connector
not.
or something. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think one of those is huge for to have for just really for an emergency. Meaning an HT is can only do so much, right? But if you got 50 watts and you can grab a ammo can and throw it in your car or
Mhm.
get to a higher place or get on your roof, now you got 50 watts, you're gonna get out somewhere and you're gonna be able to do it. So I think I'm gonna eventually design one and build one kind of like what they do and just have it,
Mhm.
like probably never use it, maybe test it out once in a while, but really just as an emergency kind of thing that you can bring anywhere and you
Yeah.
have it all set. Because like right now my two radios are one's on my shack and one's in my car and the
Mm.
shack are underwater.
Yeah. What
What
are
I
you
got
gonna
my
do,
HD.
right?
And I can't even. I don't even know how to program the thing. That's another thing I
Oh
learned,
yeah.
and I've learned that is you should always know how to program your radios without the computer because chance you're not going to have a
Mhm.
computer.
Well, we
And
already talked
I
about that.
right, and I remembered I couldn't remember how because I haven't played with that HT, but I knew it was one of these buttons you had to hold the press down for long, and another screen would come up, and that's how we found it. I was like, I think if I press this, so I was just trying by error, but I knew the idea of like, but if you didn't know or you never did that, you'd never find it. Like
Right.
I did it before, so I knew. But if I took that radio out and said, "Oh, take the tone off," Eric and I would have been screwed because we'd never figure it out.
Sounds like we have to do one of those POTA games at the next Near Fest, and have all of these like typical challenges. Program your radio for this frequency in less than 30 seconds flat, and see if you can do it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, and and then there's more to prep it. I mean, that's a whole nother talk. I mean, you need water. I mean, that's the biggest thing that they're having problem now is none of them have fresh water. So I know those helicopter guys have been dropping water down. I know when St. John, which is one of the places I go, they had 2 hurricanes in a row. It literally destroyed the island. I mean, it took all the leaves off. The pictures were horrifying, and I met people down there that lived through it. And basically, what they did is the people that lived there, the few people that were there, they all came together. The one restaurant that still could cooked the field. The guys went out fishing, brought the fish back. They were trying to get the internet back. They had generators, solar. People were getting on their boats and getting gas, crossing the thing, and they all worked together as a small community until the government and FEMA and whoever else was going to come and fix everything. But it took 3 months for them to get help. And for 3 months, these people lived like a community and made sure everyone was fed and everyone had water and whatever they needed. And they also had a communications team that was using ham radios. They were trying to get it was pretty interesting. And when I talked to them, this was before I was a ham, but they were telling me about how traumatizing it was, but how everyone pulled together, and the center of town was like that's where everyone met up, and that's where everything went out from there. So
okay, so it sounds like, just kind of quick summarizing summary in chief before I hand it over to the EDC master. That you need to start building those systems and put those in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're asking me? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you think now. I mean, I think about this all the time, and I'm always too like I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this, but like getting like food that'll last 25 years. Like, I mean, the dock strike, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember the last dock strike, where there's nothing couldn't buy food. There's nothing to eat. The shelves were like, what do we do?
Yep.
There's no food on the shelves, and we had that huge ice storm like years ago. They get no electricity. You couldn't get gas, so you couldn't drive anywhere to get the food. So
excuse me a sec. I got to run and grab my toilet paper. I'll be back. But yeah.
Yeah, and COVID. Yeah, you know where I got toilet paper at COVID is a freaking party store. They were selling like rolls of toilet paper for like $5. Like $5 for one roll of toilet paper.
We have all these party streamers. What do we do? Oh, we'll sell it as rebranded toilet paper.
But but that kind of stuff, having jugs of water, cases of water that you can access. I mean, I have, we have we put, we're out of a well, and I make sure my well is always flowing. So I always have the guy check. I'm like, how's it flowing? Oh, it's plenty.
Mm-hmm.
But, we put a water filtration cell. Like our water is like purified to like nothing in it. Like it goes through this reverse osmosis kind of stuff, and the water tastes great. But as long as I have my generator, that will work.
Fine, right?
But if you run out of gas and there's no electricity, eventually it's not going to work. But you have to get like water things that you can filter out. You can get water from the stream or whatever and filter out all the crap in it. And you can get all that stuff, but it costs money. And then you're like, well, I'm never going to use it. And then when the shit hits the fan and you wish you had it, you'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I won't get into my 2 cents because I'm similar boat as Todd. I do have obviously some of the preps, but so without, taking up the next ham radio clubhouse or HRCC 3.5 hours, give us your high level approach of what you do. Like, when you, not so much the SHFT bag type thing, but more so like what are you preparing for both on comms and just, like, or everyday type stuff? So like if hurricane showed up tomorrow, what is Paul doing?
So, all right.
He's got a boat in his driveway, so he just hop
He's
on that
ready,
and
right?
ride it out.
He's got two of them.
Come pick us up.
So all right. So the boat in the driveway is named Noah's Ark, ARC. So yes, so there's the big boat in the yard. But no, here's a crucial thing, right? Is having food and water are key, right?
Yep.
So I've got buckets with desiccants in them and 5 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of fried beans, canned meats, spam, canned tuna, canned chicken. That is stuff that as long as the can stays intact, it'll last 30 plus years. Like you don't ever have to worry about it. So 100%. Like I got that stuff. I've got probably I got the 5 gallon bottles of water. Got maybe 12 of them stacked up in reserve. So that should get us through at least a month and a half, 2 months. Of water usage without having any other clean water. But then I've also got water for purification tablets and filters and things. If we had to clean the outside water. Um, batteries, right? Like having a way to recharge your batteries, with small solar panels and things. Um, there are so many little nuances that people just they don't think of because they just go about their daily life and they never question, well, what happens if a tornado rips through New Hampshire? As rare as that occurrence is,
Yeah.
right? It could happen.
It has,
You know,
yeah.
you yeah, you could be without power for weeks on end due to a snowstorm or an ice
Nice.
storm or depending on where you live in the country, there's various natural disasters that happen all the time. And so having just a bare basic level of preparedness with food, water, a method of purification of water, and first aid, being able to take care of yourself. And, if you're not a ham, that's fine. Have some FRS radios, have a CB radio, just some alternate means of communications because yeah, when you really truly need it, cell phones aren't reliable.
Nope. They will go away.
So I won't continue on because yes, I could go on for hours and hours
Well,
on it.
and I think it's well worth if okay. So I'll throw out this little tidbit. If you want to hear more about stuff from what Paul's got set up, and we'll bring on others, and we can definitely talk more about kind of like that stuff because one of the things I kind of been juggling just recently with I went away with the wife, and of course I went to the trading post up in Maine and was kind of going through my usual like outdoorsy stores. One thing that Josh HRCC's been talking a lot about on all his podcasts and live streams and stuff is his EDC bag. And I like when he said it, I was like, oh, prepper stuff. Don't want to hear it. Blah blah blah. But then as he started to kind of explain it, I was like, man, I sort of do that with like some of my shorts or like when I'm carrying like the pocket knives and a few of the radios. But as you start to kind of get in that, my truck's kind of equipped with some of that stuff like first aid and a few things here and there, but it's not really like a complete solution that I can grab and just go somewhere with. I have to be in my vehicle to be able to take advantage of it, or if I'm not near that, that kind of like set me uneasy a little bit. So I started thinking about what I wanted to do for this EDC bag, and of course once we get into that as hams, it's like, oh cool, I can do color coding. Oh cool, I can put this bag. So I'm going down that rabbit hole. And so I'd love to hear what I know. Paul's got some awesome color coding systems and things that he carries with him that he's got, and so that would be awesome to kind of dive into. But that's kind of where I'm thinking, like because I've started to build HF in the truck, so I'm now pouring more stuff into the truck that's more convenient for HF portable stuff. So I've got a bumper, a hitch mount mast, so I can put up, and then I've got my 12-meter poles. All this stuff is kind of like for easy HF setup, but it's not like emergency setup. So I think it's a little bit of a wake up call to hear and see some of this stuff and see the devastation, because I know we're probably due for it again in New England sometime, somewhere, whatever that is, whether it's snow, rain, ice, or tornadoes, or even hurricanes for that matter. So what am I doing? I like Paul said, the typical stuff, water, toiletries, that things. We have all that in surplus because I just have my wife go out and buy that stuff, and we store it, and we use it to keep it in rotation. But it's still there's enough there to get us probably about a week. I'm not as good as Paul with the whole month, but at least I have that buffer, and it's kind of making me think more like, okay, what are my battery supplies looking like, and all of those other emergency type things, but more so like in my comms stuff. Like I have HTs, like Todd said, but I took it to Hamfest this past weekend. I could barely like program the damn thing, and it kind of like freaked me out a little bit. So I was like, all right, I got to spend more time in that realm.
No,
Putting
I
stuff
asked
together.
you. I'm like, how do you get that out of there?
I know.
And he's
Then
like,
we
oh,
asked
I don't
Paul,
know.
and Paul's like, "Oh, I think this is how you do it." So it's like 3 brains are better than 1, I guess. But yeah, so it kind of spooked me a little bit. At the same time, also made me kind of like, okay, now I got to put a little action in there. So I think, we might maybe make a segment out of this. I don't know. It's something to be fun to talk about a little bit, but I think it's definitely helpful, and it's going to be one of those things that's going to happen more and more. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've on a sidebar, and maybe you guys have been more aware of it, and I've seen a lot more social media posts around it, but ham radio is starting to get a lot more attention. I don't know. How about you guys? What's your feeling on that? I mean, from all of the puff pieces that's come out of your, South Carolina or whatever.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, like I said, I think it's starting to like it's had its like downfall. Now it's coming back. Like I said, I've met guys doing like when I've been at when we're doing the rail trail, and guys know, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm a ham. I just haven't practiced in 20 years." And I show them. They're like, "Oh, what are you on?" And I tell them like, "Oh, I just reached Croatia." And he's like, "Which is that?" Because like 20 years ago, you didn't have like the backpack pota. You know what I mean? You had huge radios and stuff, and he was pretty amazed. I'm like, "Oh," and I give him the club card and give him my card. Say, "Hey, come check us out. Give me a call if you want to get into it." So I think it is coming around more, especially now with like the digital modes and how kids are getting more into it. I think it's more computer based than it used to be. But again, it's like you got to get back to the basics too. You got to still know how to use it when the computer and everything don't work. But you'll get that one, whatever you're into, you'll eventually get that because you'll just be on the radio. Like me, my favorite part is just HF sideband all day long. I can do that all day
20
long.
meters.
Yeah.
Give me 20 meters. Yep. Okay. How about you, Paul? What's your take on some of the stuff, the feel good stuff that's coming out of ham radio?
So no, I'm truly impressed with the resurgence of the popularity of ham radio. Right. I think at least people probably like over 35 anyways are thinking in that kind of, well, what if if the cell phones don't work, which happens every time something major goes wrong, right? Then how do I get in touch with my loved ones? How do I call for help? How do I, function and let people know that, yeah, I'm here? Well, you use radio. It's tried and true, and honestly, I mean, anybody could become a technician. Like, you don't even have to study a whole lot. 90% of it is common sense. You read the question, long as you have, some comprehension of words and what they mean, then you can, process
Hey,
of elimination, figure out the answer.
I passed it with no electronic radio experience. I knew green was ground. That's all I knew. And it was like, I was psyched when I got it. I never thought I'd even get past technician. I was like, oh, cool. I got my technician. I'm good. I can talk on the nets and I got my HT. I'm ready to go. And then look at me now. I'm getting drilled on every podcast on my extra. My wife has
He's a
said,
righteous dude.
my wife goes, she goes, why are you studying for your extra? Like, why do you need that? I'm like, well, I wanted them to stop making fun of me and get it off the net so we can pick on someone else. But no, that's not really the reason. I said,
Yeah.
well, it's just,
You want to
it
be a
gives me,
VE.
yeah, I'm gonna have all the bands and I can have all the fun. So But you know, I am learning it. I mean, you do. I mean, if I don't have any schooling or education behind it, but I do understand more. I mean, we go to our barns and our social events, and when I first started, I was like, these guys are like they're like way up here, and I'm like way down here, smart wise. Like my IQ is not near, and they're talking about things. I'm like, I have no idea. Now I go there, I kind of understand. I understand what they're talking about. I got a sense of it. Maybe not in the great detail.
Well, you're not just ready to hear it. That's basically what it is. Until you're ready to
Yeah.
hear it, you got to get hands on it. So,
And then I, you know, and as I'm studying for my extra, I see some of these questions that I've never seen before, but I can, by process of elimination and knowing a little bit about what it means, I've gotten some right on the first guess because I took an educated guess because I knew that only because I've been playing radio, I've been hanging out with you guys, doing the podcast, watching podcasts, and got the previous test, you know, underdone. I mean, it sticks in your head and you start to understand it a little bit. So, if anyone can pass the test, I mean, I suck at tests. I mean, honestly, I suck at taking tests. And if I can pass, anyone could pass. And I tell you, the motivation I got now was when we were at Marlboro and that little kid was like, "Oh, I'm an extra." And he says, "Yeah." The dad was like, "Yeah, he bypassed me." How old was that kid? He was probably like what?
Like 8. No, he was 11. He was 11. No, he was 11.
Yeah. Freaking extra. And his dad got him into it. And he went right past him. His dad's like, "I'm still a general." I'm like, "Yeah, me too."
So what you say, you Paul? You know, obviously, you know, the resurgence of it's definitely a plus. But anything you want to throw in there and add?
Yeah, just you know, anybody that you know is listening to us or watching us, you know, that is on the fence or you know contemplating whether or not they should get licensed or not, get it just so you can get practice, and purely for that, because you know, like Todd had said, with he wants to get his little ammo can, you know, go box, which is fantastic. But if you leave it in the closet all the time and you're not actively using it on a regular basis, then when things go wrong, it's not guaranteed it's going to work. It's not guaranteed you're going to remember how that radio functions. You know what I mean? Everything is about practice, practice, practice. And so, while you know we all live busy lives, and nobody wants to think about, you know, well, what happens if the worst case scenario happens? But if you don't practice and you're not prepared, you're going to be in a much worse situation. You know, take our boys up north there that we had on. You know, they slid off the road. Like, had they not been at least slightly practiced in understanding how it works and how it functions and what they needed to do to save themselves, they would have been in a much worse situation. You know, so definitely it's not you know, conspiracy theory, right wing, you know, craziness to stockpile food and water that'll get you through at least a couple weeks, and to have an alternative means of communication that you are comfortable using.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to listen to that episode that Paul was referring to, that was our, I think, episode 24. I think it's called "Turning into Triumph." Or no, "Tuning into Triumph." That was the New England Chronicle piece on two guys that Nick and Ben were out, you know, in their usual doing everyday type things in the upper part of New Hampshire and you know, a non-cell phone area, and ran into some trouble in the snow, and you know, had a tale to tell about it, but a really good one at that. You know, because they both were, as Paul said, pretty well equipped, so were able to you know, practice what they were able to put into action for themselves and save their own butts, but at the same time, you know, demonstrate how important it is to do exactly what Paul was saying, you know, and what we've been kind of preaching. You know, get out there, practice, have fun with radio, and do it with others who are doing the same thing, and you're all going to learn. You know, we all haven't been born with the Baofeng manual tattooed on our shoulders, although I'm sure a few people are getting there, especially if you're in the Chinese radio, you know, club. So okay, well, good stuff. I mean, like I said, hopefully you got something out of it as we kind of chit chatted about it. I know it kind of made an impact on me, and got me thinking, and I'm sure we'll be talking a heck of a lot more about everyday carry as I kind of go through that process and learn from Paul and what he's been doing, and Todd's going to grow from it because, you know, he's just I'm going to help him spend his money anyway. So we'll all figure it out. But outside of that,
between you and my kid, God.
Well, you got him involved in flying. I can't help you there. You're a mentor. You're an Elmer. What'd you go and do that for?
Yeah. Flying's fun.
It is. Yeah. Well, all hobbies are, especially this one.
And I'll be honest with you, the flying and the ham radio, they're connected. They both use radios, just in different ways.
For sure, man. All right, well, let's wrap this thing up here. As always, again, thank you guys for joining in the Live Free and Ham podcast community. Again, I appreciate everybody who listens, especially those that we met at Nearfest past couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't subscribed, we ask, what the heck you been doing? Click that button. Go to your favorite podcast player. Find our show. You can Google Live Free and Ham, and we pop up. Give us a listen. Come be part of the community. Head over to our Discord. We have a great Discord. A bunch of great folks there, all hanging out, talking ham radio and ham radio adjacent. And, we post a lot of our shows there and conversations that we continue on from each day podcast episode. So come join us, come hang out with us. We'd love to hear you. And so with that, we always have our typical ways you can connect with us. You can head over to our shop at livefreeandham.com/shop. Pick up some of our merch, please. It helps support the show, helps us grow. We love seeing it out there, and it's well worth it. So, and if you listen to us on the Apple Podcast Player or any podcast player, you can always leave us a review over there. But if you'd prefer to make it simpler in your life, much easier, just click that SMS link in our description. Send us a text. Tell us how much you love us, how much you don't care for us, or how ugly we are. I don't care. Just send us a notice. We'll read it on our next show there. So we appreciate that, the folks that have sent that stuff. And you can always support our show through our Patreon and buy us a beer link. So if you love this show this much and you want to get more of our shows, we have all of those available on our Patreons for early release. So you can check those out and watch those before they are scheduled to air. And we've got some convenient buy us a beer links as well too. So if you want to give a one-time support the show, we'd love to have you. And if you want to reach any of us, you can head over to livefreeandham.com. And thanks again from all of us at Live Free and Ham. 7-3.
7-3.
7-3.